Hello, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight's community discussion is Queering the Space, Gender Expression in Theater and Film. Let me first introduce you to tonight's moderator, Cece. Come on.
Hi.
Hi. So great to have you here. Thank you so much. I'm going to pop off and enjoy the discussion along with everyone else, and I will see you at the end of the discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. Hi, I'm your moderator tonight, Cece Swazo Harris, for tonight's beautiful, amazing coffee talk table. Oh my God, I'm like so excited to announce the panelists. First, we have Vico Ortiz. Vico, if you can come on. Hey Vico, how are you doing?
Doing good. What's good?
We're also waiting for another panelist to join us later on in the program. But the next panelist is someone that is, believe it or not, an idol to me. And I learned so much by watching them navigate in and out of this industry. I would like to introduce the one and only Mr. Buck Angel. You can come on and join us. Hey, Buck.
Hi, I love you. Thank you.
I guess we're waiting for Temi Deo to join us. So, but hey, let's get the party started, right? Yeah. we should get a dance party since Buck likes to dance.
I love to dance. I'm that white guy. I swear to God, I'm that white guy.
So tonight's topic is queering the space in TV and film. So what do you guys think of that? How do you feel? What are your expressions, emotions about it?
Go on, Vico. You go first.
Queering up the space on TV and film. I feel like queering up the space just means like breaking down a lot of the traditional views of society that like film and TV has been like blasting on us, like left and right, both like TV, film, commercials, promotions, anything. You know, we as entertainers like have such a responsibility and we have a lot of power in how society sees other folks outside of our screens, and queering up the space I feel like is challenging those like traditional cis heteronormative views that have been like blasted to us. So queering up the space just means like breaking all the rules.
Yeah. And you, Buck, the icon, because you've been in this game longer than all of us. You are an icon.
I'm old. I'm just old.
You're not old. You're an icon. You
Right
putting
on. Thank you, my friend. So, well, you know, exactly what Vico said for sure. And so, you know, I've really been in two different sort of entertainment spaces. I've been in the mainstream entertainment space as well as in the sort of adult entertainment space. And on some level, they're very similar when it comes to sort of very rigid, very old school, right? Very like the men are, especially in adult, the men are, no, I would say in mainstream too. The men are in control of the situation, where in adult, the same thing. And so I think one of the reasons I did start my work in adult specifically was to change that narrative and to give it a different voice, you know, that didn't exist before me. And only trans women, but there wasn't really queer porn. There was not queer porn when I started. That got started during the time I started. And there wasn't a different types of people. There were no theys and thems or any of the, you know, gender non-conform, none of that stuff. So that being said, I think just the panel today, you can see that we're already making that change. So I feel exactly what Vico said, and I think that it's really important that we're everybody knows that we're so far from that. So we really need to fight to make this space, I think, much more diverse.
100%. I feel like we've definitely gone a long way, but we still have so much more to go. I feel like a lot of it too, queering up the space doesn't just mean writing characters or having actors like in front. It means queering the space like all together, both in front, behind the camera, the head honchos like to be queer, because right now it still is like they're like, oh, we got one character and then we got it, and it's like no, 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 we gotta have like people behind, writers room, PAs, producers, directors, and also not just the one character, you know, as you can see already. I mean, like, we're so different and we're all queer. I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we can't just one person be like the umbrella for all the queer people. And we still have quite a way to go, but we've done quite a bit already, but there's more that can be done.
I have a question, Vico, because you bring up a lot of points. Do you think that they got it right when it comes to Pose is concerned? Do you think that Pose is the show that's starting to shape and that shaped the way for the community now? Do you think?
Pose is literally church for me. I'm just like, Pose is such a beautiful show, both like for on screen, behind the screen, the whole community around it. I mean, Pose truly is an iconic show that has broken down so many doors, windows, ceilings, has given opportunities to so many other people as well, and it continues to harbor that. I love seeing that folks that are working on Pose are now opening their own production companies, and then also giving up more opportunities for other folks, so it doesn't just stay there. You know, it continues to grow and expand and take space, and not wait for space to be given, but taking the space that we deserve. And I think Pose has given us a lot of that power, and it's beautiful to, I mean, it inspires me as an actor, because I mean, I've always been like, I'm an actor and that's it, but I'm like, you know what, once I have a certain like title, name, or whatever, like, yes, absolutely open a production company, absolutely like team up with other folks and like let's produce stuff together, not wait for the space to be given, but just be like, no, we belong here, this is where we're taking, this is our spot, we're doing this. And Pose has just been, I love. Yes, Pose is the best. Yes,
I feel like, yes, Pose gave a segue into, you know, the opportunities, but I felt that behind the scenes, because I did work behind the scenes, I felt that it was being run by white, cis, gay men. The first two episodes, they had no business writing the first 2 or 3 episodes. You're telling a narrative from a community, an unrepresented community that I come from. I come from ballroom, you know, so you're writing something, a narrative that is offensive to me, number one. Number two, you should have done your research. I felt that you should have went into the ballroom community and scouted out those writers, because there are many fantastic writers in the ballroom community that was there in the 80s. I came into ballroom in 1988. You know, I was a newbie. I was a kid. I was not even a teenager. I was a baby, you know? So I felt that in some ways it was offensive, but it gave my sisters and brothers employment. It gave them opportunity to be seen. You know, MJ has been in my life for 10 years, MJ Rodriguez. For them to have been nominated for an Emmy last week was like game changing. Like, MJ has been out here hitting the pavement, slaving, putting in that work. Not only MJ, but Dominique Jackson, who is my sister as well. And we know each other personally way before Pose. You know, India Moore, like those ladies have been in this game hitting the pavement, down to Billy Porter, you know? And I worked with Billy at the age of 17, you know? So I feel like, yes, the doors are opening, but why is it that it has to be such control by gay, white men?
Do you know if in the last season or in the last few seasons that changed, or did it like stay the same throughout?
It's kind of stayed the same throughout. I felt like them bringing Janet Mock was injustice to her.
Mm.
I felt it was an insult to her.
Mm.
Like, you brought her in as the token poster girl to say, hey, we got a Black trans woman right in the show.
That's right.
Mm.
That's
She
right.
was a poster girl. You really didn't give her that credibility that she well deserved. That's why she went off. Let's be honest.
She did go off. She did
No.
go off.
40,000, come on, a director on a third series hit show making $40,000.
Bullshit. Bullshit.
Those directors on Handmaid's Tale on Netflix don't make no $40,000.
Yeah.
Those white directors.
Yeah. Say it. Say it. What you're saying
They
is very
don't.
important. It's very important, Cece, what you're saying. I don't
They
think
don't.
we talk about it enough. You know,
Because she was a Black trans woman.
that's right.
They played her. And I see it all the time. Even, I'm going to keep it on the eye. A lot of theater companies reach out to me
Mm.
and they want to commission me to write new works. I'm all down for writing new narratives that are hardly unheard or not seen throughout stages. I'm all for that. But when you try to play me as a playwright, and I know you gave it my counterpart who's white, trans, way more dollars than me, then that just means you're not for my community. You're not for me. I'm not going to be your scapegoat to say, oh, we are including diversity and inclusion. That's not diversity and inclusion. That's being a coward. And you're trying to hire me as your scapegoat, as your poster girl. And that's not happening. Let's talk about L. Morgan Lee, Obie Award winner, first Black trans woman for Strange Loop. You don't give her that much credibility. And she's extremely talented, L. Morgan Lee. But if her counterpart was white, won an Obie, you'll see them in the next show on Broadway, getting offers here, there. The game still isn't fair to a person of color, especially from the community. The game isn't fair. And that's why I say that we need to lead. We need to lead by better example, by creating our own content. Even if it's not brought, someone's gonna see it.
No, absolutely. Which is why I love about, I mean, like Angelica Ross just opened her own production company. I know that Alexandra Billings also opened up her own production company. And it's like, it's that like, it sucks that like, they've had to like take roles that like were given by the white, either white cis het male or the white gay male. But once they got the leg in, I'm still there's a lot of ways to go, but I am seeing more and more folks from the community being like, F this, we're gonna make our own stuff. Like we're gonna start from the ground. The boss is gonna be us. It's not gonna be someone else being like using us as scapegoats, using us as an excuse, like, no, we are diverse. It's like, no. The main person, the big boss is someone from our side, someone from our community. But it's still, we still have way ways to go. And you're absolutely right, because they still very much like hide between, and then like quote unquote like make us an offer, but then on the other side they're like giving all this money to other people, and they're just using us as like, but we have diversity, we're doing the thing. And it's just like a very tricky dance of like which to say yes to like move forward in some ways, but not lose your like values really. And another end, just like, how much can we push on this end? It's like a weird balance of like dancing with the devil almost. But I am seeing a lot of folks from our side like actually like making the waves and opening their own production companies and doing stuff like for us, by us, with us, which is freaking rad.
Yeah, it's freaking rad. But then sometimes the situation could be sad, because just because they're from the community doesn't mean that they stand for their community.
That's right.
You know, I've met a few people that were like, okay, you're part of the community. Okay, I see it. I get everything you're doing artistically and you're creating, but you're not for the POC sector of the community. And it's sad. It's sad because it's like we get judged 24/7. There's stigmas on us. We get killed. I don't care what skin color you are. We're targets. We're targets, like a GTA 5 game. And I say this all the time, but Black and brown trans women have the higher rates, you know? And I've been in rooms where it's been community members, but you're not for us. And it's really disheartening and it's sad. So it's like, what are the other options? What other options do we have? Because, hey, personally, I feel like I have 2 strikes against me. I'm Black and I'm a woman of trans experience.
So how do we change that then, my friend? So how we change that, I think, is by exactly what you're doing. We're not pandering. You cannot pander to the fact that some of us or some of you or whoever got jobs on Pose and now we're cool with that. That's just a little bit of your foot in the door. And that's, I'm going to use this example for my own self. And in the pornography world, there was no representation of a person like me in porn. And when I got my foot in that door, just a tiny little bit, everyone lost their shit. Nobody wanted to help me, not even the trans community, nobody. Everyone came after me that I was doing something so bad. You can flip the narrative today. Many people in our community do this now, and I did squeeze us through the door, but it's not about me to maintain that squeeze. I can't maintain that. We're nowhere near where I think we should be in porn. Now I squeaked the fucking door open, but now the rest of the kids got to come in and push that fucking door open. So I'm kind of equating what you're saying to me with just the example of Pose for the rest of Hollywood. And that comes down to what you were saying, was creating your own production company. I did that. I created my own production company. I own all my own content. I create all my own content, and forever I will make money off of my own content. And so will the people I hire. So that I understand the power of creating your own space in an industry that doesn't want you to be there. I created that space out of nothing. So it's actually possible to do that, but it is not possible when other people are squeaking past the doorway and not putting their hand back to pull you through the fucking doors along with them. Because it's power in numbers. It's not power in one person. It's not power in, I got a job here and look at me, I'm this Black trans woman on this show, or I'm this, Black, non-binary on this show. It doesn't know. That's nothing. That's exactly what you said. It's pandering to us. It's telling us, okay, we got you here. They don't got us, you guys. They do not, especially you guys. Not me, I'm white. I don't need to say that. I'm white. I'm a white dude. I'm cis passing. I have a whole other level of privilege that is beyond belief. But what it would be remiss of me is if I did not see you two. And I do see you two as sisters, brothers, families, siblings. I see all of you. And it does, and I want you to know that as a white person, and there are white people in our community who do see you and do understand that we need to give you that platform. I shouldn't be talking here, and I'm going to shut up in a minute. It's about you guys. It's not about me. I can help to squeeze that door open, but geez, man, we got to come together as a community, and we got to fucking start helping each other. And we got to start understanding the racism, the bullshit, the sexism, all the shit that is in the media part of this. And don't get fooled by the fact that 1 or 2 Black people got hired on a show. And don't be fooled by that shit. Or non-binary, Vico, don't be swayed by that, because just because 3 non-binaries got on a show now, it's still not going to be, it should be a normal thing. I mean, I want to sort of normalize us. I don't know about you guys, but I want to normalize us in a way that's, we don't have to have these fucking conversations.
Normalize.
Exactly. I totally agree with you, Buck. And another thing, don't you get tired being the advocate for the community? Like, this is a conversation I had with a colleague last week, and I said, I'm gonna stop coming out. I'm gonna stop coming out to rallies. I'm gonna stop speaking publicly on my platforms, because I feel like I'm starting to feel like I'm one of the advocates. And it's like, okay, there she goes again. There she goes going off. Is she delusional today? Where's her mental health state? Or hey, you know, it hinders her from job opportunities in the future because she keeps publicly speaking out on situations that nobody really wants to talk about. So then I know when there's a pause, when there's like a long pause in my career, and you're like, the phone calls are stopping, it's because they are scared of you. They're scared to sit in the same room with you. They're scared to look at you eye to eye. They're scared to really tell you, you know, just to have a real conversation. And I'm a realist. I'm about always keeping it 100%. I call it $1, $1, because you're keeping it 100, you know, and it's like, okay, well, I got a family to feed, and the calls are stopping because you're scared that what may come out of my mouth, but it needs to be said, and you should sit there and listen, because it just might educate you. It might make you want to open your eyes wider and wider to why we're having these discussions. I get tired of sitting on these panels. I get tired of having these discussions. And it's like, when are you going to get it? When? And it's like, it's a never ending story. When are you guys going to get it?
Oh, you know how many panels I've been on too?
Yeah.
It's like we're speaking. You know what? I tell you what the problem is, that I think that we're speaking to the choir. Like, if you're just telling the same fucking people over and over in our bubbly world, and we all go to these queer events and we're all queered out and we're just speaking to the fuck each other. We got to speak to the big wigs up there. And you know what speaks to the big people? And this is something I know from experience: money. Money speaks. It's an actual real thing. Money is power. And power creates change. So if we're taking away their money, we're taking away their power. And their money comes from what? It comes from content. when you Pose is such a great fucking example. There's such a negative and a positive to that show, as far as I'm concerned. It's a great, awesome show. But what Cece said is so profound. It's so profound, it shouldn't be stuck in this little space. Not that what we're doing is little, but what you said should be there for everyone outside of our community to hear, because that's also how you create, how we're going to end racism, not talking between ourselves. We need to end it by putting it into the world and saying we're sick and tired of this bullshit. So I see very parallels to how do we get people to understand we're tired of this shit. Queering the space is a great thing, but we shouldn't have to be in our own queering space. We should be coexisting in space. We should be just, okay, you need a Vico character who's a cool person, who's this type of, I don't give a shit that they're a non-binary or that they're this or whatever. Like, fucking hire them because they are a great, talented actor. You know, I don't necessarily believe that a trans person should be only hired to play trans. I'll be honest with you with that. I think I agree with you, Bob. Pigeon-toed. They're going to get pigeon-toed into only playing trans characters. Don't you want to just play a fucking lady, CC? Like some. Yeah.
I love you, Buck. Yes, you know, it's so funny, Buck, because I tell my theatrical agents, I'm a woman of a particular age. What it looks like I'm playing a trans character, and I've been playing the same character for 20 plus years. So if when a breakdown comes in and they look at me and they're like, oh God, and they're rambling, they're like, we're scared to even approach her. My number one rule is don't approach me. Don't even bring it up. I don't even care if Law and Order is looking for a prostitute, Black trans woman. I don't care. I don't care how much the pay rate is. I don't care how much screen time I'm gonna be receiving. That's not my thing in 2021 anymore.
That's what I'm saying right there. That's what I'm saying. It's hard to say no to jobs. I do it all the fucking time, but the universe will hear you. I don't give a shit what you say. If you are passionate to who you want and what you want the world to see, yeah, you might have to eat top ramen for just a little while longer, my friend, but I swear to God, your passion is what creates the change and what gets you into that space. So when you keep saying, no, I'm not playing the Black prostitute, I want to play the mom. Be the mom. Like, fuck, why can't I just be? That's where the change gets created. But a lot of us are scared to do that because then, you know, we're losing the job, which is a very difficult space to be in. It 100% is. But I just want to say that he said that
Yes,
motto.
I would like to introduce Temi Dale Amay to our next guest panelist. Temi Dale, if you could come on and join the conversation.
Hi, everybody. Please, thank you so much for your patience. We are learning. I'm also on the East Coast, so
Yes.
it's just 11 o'clock at night.
Temi Dale, and give Lady Dane kisses for me. Since
Yeah.
you're
Oh my
by.
God. Okay.
That is my sister. We create all the time. So give her kisses for me.
Absolutely. That's my
Thank
aunt.
you.
That's my big sis.
Yes, I'm the big sis to her. So she's little sis and I'm big sis. So
There you
you're
go.
little sis to me.
Like my okay, perfect.
But tell me, Dave,
Thank you for having me.
we were talking about, queering the space in TV and film. I started with, Pose, the depiction of Pose. And if you feel is because they came out, is the industry changing because of that show and giving us more platforms to be seen?
I definitely think the film industry is changing because of that show, and the screen industry is changing because of that show. I think change in the theatrical realm was already happening before Pose became. I also believe that Pose is setting a precedent for what trans people are allowed to look like on screen. One of the things that I was actually talking to Dane about, and one of the things that she has mentioned is that, like, there are no fat trans people in that show. There are no trans people with physical disabilities in that show. And so it's like, we're still leaning and referring to white supremacist, heteronormative styles of what a human being can look like on screen. And it just so happens that the sprinkle that makes it, fresh, new, and interesting for film is that they are trans. But they're all still very model pretty. They're all incredibly, thin, with the exception of one or two characters. But in terms of like the big four, yeah, they're thin and they're pretty and they have, cool hair. And it's like, but what if we could see beyond that, and layer into, like, what if this is a trans person who also has a disability, who also maybe, happens to also be a person who is undocumented? Like, let's get into that story, because so many of us are traveling with so many of these identities that to kind of cater to them one at a time feels like an injustice and feels like incredibly slow, to be honest. It feels like it just moves at such a slow pace that by the time that we would see all of our identities on screen at the same time in the same flash, it would be like 50 years from now. And at that point, we're already trying to catch up to whatever is going to be what we need to be identifying with 50 years from now. So it always feels like it's going to be a little bit behind. But I will say, and this is all to say, like, I love the show. I love the show. I love the show a lot. I love what it's doing for Ballroom. I love what it's doing for the community there. I love what it's doing for continuing to have a conversation about AIDS and HIV in the community. And because I love the show, I'm also critical of the show. And because I see the potential that it has to be even more. And now that it's closing, like, what will be in its place? How can we take this to the next level for the next show?
You being a DC artist from theater, and I know Dane being one of, like, the biggest playwrights and creators of our time in DC, but nationwide, like Little Sis is huge in Washington DC. Where do you see the landscape for the community?
In DC specifically? I believe Dane has blazed so many trails in this city, and that's not something that I'm shy to give her flowers on. I tell her all the time that, like, without Dane, I don't know if I could be. And I believe that because of her work and those who support her and give her space, and give her money and give her platform, we have seen so much change in such a short amount of time. I remember being introduced to her presence probably around 2016, 2015, 2017, something there. And listening to her words and being like, wow, this woman is incredibly radical. And I am not there in my journey. And I was like, you know, fresh out of college, too, just trying to find my footing in the city. And now, you know, I carry those words with me, the words that she was, you know, giving to the community in 2017 when everyone was like, oh, she's too radical for the scene. And now you're seeing all of the cool contemporaries using those very same words. And we're ready to hear them now. Ooh, 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 look at this. We're going to be on top of it, blah, blah, blah. But she was doing it before it was on trend. And so what I'm seeing a lot of now, and I was just actually talking to somebody about this today, about like so many of the words that Black, queer, and trans people have been putting into the vocabulary, you know, years ago, the theatrical industry here in DC is just catching up to. And so there's a lot of like, I would say like reparative casting or reparative like, oh, you know, let's bring you in now because we get what you were saying before. So there are roles for trans people here. There are positions of, you know, Western power structure that trans people are now coming into occupy. I am still interested in one of the things that I am taking from this time in solace to like, to carry forward is to have more Black and brown trans producers, because at the end of the day, they are the ones who have the final say with what goes on inside of the room. And I want Black trans people to be in charge. And so it's not just hiring Black trans actors or queer and trans actors or having a queer trans director. It's the producer, it's the artistic director. Let's get some queer and trans people on the board. Let's get queer and trans sponsors. You know, how are you investing in the trans small businesses that can become a part of the donorship for the theater? So it's not just this very performative and very visceral, like we did an incredibly queer and trans play, and now 2 months from now, it'll be history. How do we let it be a long-term thing?
How do you feel, Tammy Dale, about the Mosaic Theater where they had that production of Charm? That was a scandal. That, you know what I'm talking about, right, Tammy Dale? That scandal. Oh, I'm so glad that the artistic director decided to step down. So
after a very heavy suggestion from everybody around him, and after a lot of work from a lot of people who are going unnoticed to make that happen. And in all of these instances, especially where these white cis men are getting a chance to step down,
speak.
They are getting a chance to absolve themselves and bow out gracefully, instead of what really has happened, which was months and months and years of folks coming and saying, you need to leave. Like what you're doing here is violence. You are embodying violence in every part of your practice, so you need to go. You know, entire committees that were made so that we could get him out. And so for it to be this washing of, oh yes, he was able to step down, you know, the Ari Ross, the Eric Schaefers.
Yes.
That's kind of a lie. But I will say, now that he is gone, I have more faith in that theater. There's still a couple of people more who could go, if I'm being completely honest, and a couple other theaters in the area who could also be washed of the people who are a part of them. Now, referring to Charm specifically, which is I think the show that you're referring to, that was, I think, my first introduction to Dane, because she was very vocal about the casting. And for those of us who don't know the situation, Charm is about a Black trans woman who is leading essentially like an after-school program for students who are at risk. And they had cast a cis man to play this trans woman. And
well, actually, Tammy Dale, they cast a cis Black former NFL player turned actor.
Yes.
To play Mama Darlena Andrews.
Yes. Thank you for naming her as well. And so, yeah, Dane was like, absolutely not. you know, and was very very strategic in speaking to Ari and saying this is not okay, and you know, let's have conversations about it, and was being blown off and blown off and blown off by the theater. And I won't tell Dane's story because that's Dane's story. From what I gathered when I was, you know, just again a fledgling in the community, seeing screenshots of emails that Dane had sent to the theater and not seeing any response to me that was up to par for the situation. And then finally, her wishes of seeing a Black trans woman play that character came true.
Yeah.
After fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. And so much of what happens, especially in the non-for-profit world, is like after one incredibly brave person has championed, the credit goes to the theater or to the nonprofit organization to say, look, we are so amazing. We hired a Black trans woman to play a Black trans woman. Look at us, frou frou frou, give us our flowers. As opposed to issuing an apology and recognizing that Dane had done hours and hours of labor, unpaid, unserviced, unspoken about in the program. There was no special thanks, you know, and that gentleman who was originally cast to play the lead then became a part of the directorial team. So he was still in the room as well. I don't know if that would fly right now. I don't think it would.
No.
Yeah, and so I just remember being like, this is a lot. And I was, again, just coming in and just seeing and just being in awe of someone who had decided, actually, this is my fight. And I had taken that energy into many of a rehearsal studio to say, you know what, they might not like me after this is over, but I know that I have done a lot of work here to make this community better for the next time I or someone like me comes into the room, because they will not have to deal with the kind of garbage that I just had to deal with. I will not have it. And, you know, and so for a lot of people, they have seen that in me and they're like, oh, that person is, you know, there's a lot of energy there. You know, I like to call myself young and reckless, so I don't really care. And I think Buck was naming this as well, like, and you were naming it as well, Cece, about like, it is more important for me to be able to sleep with myself at night, knowing that I did the very best that I could, than to roll over in a space, because I have to be with myself and I have to self-advocate and I have to be my champion in every regard. And there is no amount of capital that is worth me selling my soul. You know what I'm saying? So I've definitely taken that gift and watching that, you know, with my young eyes and internalizing and letting that be a guide for me as I direct and as I produce and as I act, to say, you know what, we are not going to have that in my room. Never that. And if there is an, you know, instance where I make a mistake, because I am human and I am still learning myself, I am 100% willing to admit that and to recognize and to reckon with myself about, okay, what was that and what in me made that mistake on that person, and so then what work do I have to do as an individual as I am still learning and unlearning in my Black, queer, trans, non-binary experience, you know?
I'm gonna drop a little tea. When it came to Charm, I worked with Dane on that whole mosaic thing, you know, in DC, only because I helped create Mama Darlena Andrews with Philip Dawkins, the playwright, in Charmed. And over the years, he kept sending me rewrites of the and of course, you know, our other sis, June Brown, played her in Boston. And of course, you know, it was done off Broadway with Sandra Cadwell. And what was so funny was that knowing that I helped Philip Dawkins, the playwright, create this role, and June Brown being the first woman of color to play her in Boston, could you believe we were asked by Telsey Casting to audition for the role? I
You
said,
were asked to audition for the role that you helped write?
and Julie and June Brown had to audition for that she already previously played in order for it to go off Broadway. That was done at the Lucille Lortel Theater.
But this is what
And
happens
here
when you start to work
comes
in those, like,
out of nowhere.
you know, you're working in commercial theater, you're working with producers who have no idea what's going on. I mean, and this is the thing about Broadway
Right.
as well, about like in so many instances I've heard of people saying, you know, the things that these producers ask me to do when I'm in the third or fourth round of auditioning is absurd. And would never fly in the, you know, non-for-profit theater community, at least as we hope. But that, honestly, that does not surprise me. And that is saying something in and of itself. Like,
You know what it was? I took it as we weren't good enough for you because we were non-equity actresses at the time, Dane and I. And well, not Dane, sorry, Julie and June Brown. We were non-equity actresses at the time. And even though I was part of the creation of the role and Julie and June Brown played her in Boston, I felt like it was a slap to our faces. You know,
it was.
we went through an extensive amount of callbacks, even though we both knew the role. You know, she played it her version, I played it my version, you know, and for them to initially say, well, we decided to go with someone much older, Sandra Cadwell, who lived in South, lived in Canada, wasn't even a US resident. And for her to come in and you know, solidify it, made it the way she did, which, by the way, it was stellar how, you know, she perfected the role and she made it her own. But I felt that, hey, it's really a slap in the face to us. It's a slap in the face to all three of us, you know? And I felt like we're not that good enough for you guys.
And of course you are, and you always have been. And like, it just goes back to it, for me, it goes back to the amount of labor and service that trans people have to do in a lot of the spaces that are majority cis, that then goes unnoticed, unacknowledged, uncompensated. And then they'll do whatever they need to do to find a version of that experience that they find palatable.
Right.
And oftentimes, if I'm being completely honest and talking about this intersectionally, a lot of that happens to Black trans women, of like just doing umpteen amounts of service and labor to get people on board. And then they will find the fairest, skinniest, most Calvin Klein ready, you know, version of the trans experience that they are comfortable with. And that person will carry on and do the parts that are in the limelight. Whereas fat, Black, disabled, trans women do not get to enjoy the fruits of their labor. And that's the kind of bullshit that I see all the time. And I have experienced it. I've seen it for myself about like being in spaces and saying, hey, wait. And then watching as folks essentially in their whole, you know, shame experience, forget to even say, actually, you did that for us. And that was a moment that we can be grateful for. And then I have to then self-advocate and say, hey, this is a moment where I felt like y'all missed the ball. And therefore do even more service just to be acknowledged in the service that I had just previously done. And then that cycle carries on and carries on and carries on. And I'm like, I will do it when I feel like doing it, but I shouldn't have to. And if there are cis people in the space, if we're talking about queering the space, it is an opportunity for cis people to be my advocate in the space. It is their pleasure to be my advocate in the space as well, because even just having me in the space expands the space as we know it. And so I shouldn't have to then also be of service and labor to this space. I'm already here. That's already the triumph. You feel me? Like the fact that I am still here, I am still living, I'm still embodying in this life, and still have a means to find my own voice and joy and pleasure in my life. Like, yeah, so I am very much of like, if you're gonna be in my space, be my advocate, or else don't invite me, for real. For real.
It's so funny. You took me back to a situation where I felt that accountability wasn't taken and credit wasn't given. I was in a world premiere written by one of my good colleagues, Chisa Hutchinson. She wrote a play called Dead and Breathing that I happened to audition for at National Black Theater. And they decided, instead of casting a POC trans woman of experience, they casted a Black cisgendered woman in the role of Veronica Fern. So I was okay. I was like, okay, well, I don't know too much of the play, so it's fine. But when I happened to walk into the LA auditions for the San Francisco premiere, you know, I had the callbacks, audition, eventually securing the role. And what was crazy was that I remember getting sick during one of the performances, and I had no inkling. Now, Veronica Fern is a Black trans woman of experience. She's a nurse in the play. It's a two-handler. I had no acknowledge that the producers were prepping an understudy that happened to be white and was trans. And said, okay, well, if she doesn't go on tonight, then her understudy will go on. And I said, understudy?
And you had no knowledge of this.
I had no knowledge. And she was white. She said, oh, I didn't want to say anything. They had me fitted for a costume. I said, first and foremost, this is a slap to Chisa Hutchinson. Chisa didn't write this narrative for a white girl. So if I'm not going to be on that stage, they might as well cancel performance. Because guess what? They want to see those two actresses on that billboard and those advertisements. These white gay producers did not care a day in the world about me being ill. And it was just about ticket sales to them.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Absolutely.
So you know my co-star said? She said, well, then there's no show, because if she's sick and she's out, I'm not performing tonight.
Okay, and that's the solidarity we're looking for. Yeah.
We have this chemistry on stage together. And so you know what I did? My grandmother always says, put your big girl panties on and let the show go on. Sick as a dog.
Wow.
Well,
you shouldn't even have to do that.
Sick as a dog. I went into San Francisco General Hospital. They call it the Facebook Hospital because I guess it's owned by Mark Zuckerberg.
Oh.
Went into the hospital maybe 6 hours before my call time. The doctor said, you won't be able to perform for maybe a few days. When he said, I'll be back, I took off the IV, threw on my clothes, hauled the cab, and went to that theater. I was sick as a dog. Sick as a dog.
And this is where it's like, it's not about, oh, everybody's trans, so it's cool. Like, no, whiteness is still a thing. Like white supremacy is still a thing. Like,
you know, it's not going to change. That's right. I apologize. Shit's
No,
not going to
please,
change
please.
until we, white people, understand. As I say it every fucking day, what's wrong with white people? Like, I know what it is. They don't want to give it up. They're just like, we are not giving this shit up. Fuck you. So, that's what the problem is. And so I'm not going to speak for all white people, but until white people actually acknowledge it and really understand that they are the problem and why shit's not changing, it's just not going to change. And that's specifically talking about what we're talking about in theater, in film. White people run it, white men run it. It's an actual real white heterosexual dudes are in control of everything. And what I said earlier before you came on, and what you guys have all said here, money. Money is it. It doesn't matter. That's why we have people in our community who will take the job, knowing that it probably isn't the smart thing to do. And I don't blame people, right? People have to figure that space out for themselves. But when you were saying that earlier, it's the choice that you have to live with forever. And are you willing to take that role because you'll be that Black person in the role, but who cares? Because they're never going to hire another Black person again. Or you're going to say no until you start hiring more Black people. We all have to stick together and understand that's how the system changes. I mean, I know it for my pornography. I changed the system in pornography 22 years ago because it didn't have me and it wouldn't even accept me in that. I fought hard, you guys, hard to get to where I am. People hated me. I got death threats. I got everything. And I'm not comparing. I'm just saying, like, I understand the struggle to make change in an industry that does not want change. And this industry does not necessarily want change. And so the only way we're going to make change, first off, is by giving Black people voice and white people just sitting down for a second here and letting people have their space, and also participating in that change and really understanding that helping people create their own content. When you start creating Black theater, Black film production companies, Black and all Black run, that's how the shit starts to change. And then you can start hiring white people. And then that's when the coexistence starts to happen. But in order to break a system, we have to have these two facets here. That's what I see. And then we kind of can coexist. But until we understand money, power, which we all do, but it's scary to not take the job when you need the money or when you need that. But somehow we have to really instill that they're using. Pose was a great space, and I think it really did create a bit of change. But that being said, what's going to happen now? I want to know from all you, do you actually see the change in the industry?
No, and I went off last week because, out of all the new 2021, 2022 season openers, how many playhouses are producing new works from members of the community that happen to be of color?
Oh God. I mean, it's so interesting now because now we get to see what happens when they're panicking, because so many theaters are doing these big box stories in order to rapidly generate income that they lost over the last 18 months. So I'm seeing Our Town and, maybe The Crucible, but then it's like, I think
a streetcar.
Yeah. Like, what? You made all of these promises last summer to change, and
yes.
Now when the going has gotten tough, you have reverted back to your white supremacist, patriarchal, heteronormative ways, and it's like you have to be ready to carry the baton when the going gets tough. It's easy to be a fair weather friend in that regard. But what happens when the storm comes, really? And I want to mention that, like, that white supremacy is not just being held by white people.
Right.
Everybody across the board is upholding white supremacy, investing in white supremacy in every sense, and so there has to be a mass divestment from white supremacy, a personal divestment from white supremacy, and also like a governmental divestment from white supremacy, and in our business and in our economics, because it is so insidious and has worked its way into so many facets of our lives that there has to be essentially a mass shutdown. And personally, I was hoping that with the literal massive shutdown that happened, because of the coronavirus, that we would take that as an opportunity to restructure and to abolish. And there was a lot of talk, of course, especially in areas where there is this blanket liberalism, like in the theater and like in film. We all like to believe that we are all very open and free and willing. And a lot of that is based in this wonderful phrase that I just learned called white urgency, of like, we have to fix it now, and then recognizing that it's not a one-stop fix, you know, you put a Band-Aid on it, but it is in fact a lifelong practice. Then all of a sudden it stops and they're like, oh, it's too hard. Okay, let's just go back to the way it was. And I'm seeing a lot of that happening in theater. And I'm seeing, I don't know quite yet what TV is doing. I think I'll have to wait until like pilot season of next year. But there are maybe one or two producing bodies that are doing anything worth my time. And I agree that with you, Buck, in that a lot of folks are saying, okay, well, I will self-produce, because if I have learned anything, it is that capital is not necessary for self-production.
Totally.
It is community that is necessary for self-production.
Excellent.
And
excellent.
That's one of the things that I have like been able to give to myself, the gifts, the realizations over the quarantine, to be like, I'll just figure it out, and know the people that I have surrounded myself with are willing to figure it out with me, as opposed to I have to do this idea and get some investors and and, you know, set up a Kickstarter. Like, I'm all for Kickstarter. I'm probably going to make one, but like, to know that it is not just Kickstarter that's going to save this, or it's not just going to be, you know, the big investor who's a, you know, private, unnamed, you know, I can do it with my 45 cents and my cell phone. It's fine. We'll figure it out. And if the income comes, then the income comes. And like, that's one of the reasons I love OnlyFans and like all of these sites, where people like, I'm just going to post my own stuff and like, I'm going to make my own coin, and I'm going to do the kind of videos that I want to do. Because waiting around for someone to give us the permission to come into their space will be a very long wait.
It probably will never happen.
Yeah,
it won't.
It'll be so slow that will, like, it will seem like it's not even moving. We have to be
in 2021. We're in 2021. Let's be real here. It's not going to happen unless you make it happen, because I know it's from my own experience. I'm telling you, I didn't even have this when I started making porn, right? And porn actually really created a space for people to understand you can create your own content. That literally came from the pornography business. And it showed the world that you can take a camera, whatever, even just like a regular camera, and you can start to create your own. What you're saying is very powerful, my friend. If everyone out in the world hears what you're saying, then that's how change starts to create, because you're going fuck you to those other platforms that are making a shit ton of money off you and giving you 20% or whatever the fuck that is. And instead you're saying, you know what, go fuck yourself. I'm going to make 80% and you get to make 20%. That we really need to flip these narratives and take control of our own content. Content is the key. That's the thing that's what Pose is. Pose was content. That's all it was. But what you said earlier was really powerful. You said they're too they're uncomfortable. They don't want to be uncomfortable. They want to be comfortable. It's why they don't want to have big people in it, people who are with disabilities, any kind of different person, because they know the outside world will also be uncomfortable with it. You know, pushing boundaries, it takes a little while. And fuck that. We're tired of waiting. You have to push boundaries on your own. And then sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it's not. You know me, I have people out there love me and they hate me. And so I don't care. All I know is I made fucking change. You can hate me all you fucking want. I know my vision and what I need to do to make change. So know that people are going to hate you. People are going to love you. People are going to be with you. Some Black people are going to be cool about it. Some aren't. Some are, you know what I mean? But find that community, you guys. Really, I really want to see Black production companies. I really want to see Black.
And they exist. They absolutely exist. And it's about letting the people know that they do. I actually run a producers collective called the Pilot Project for that very same reason of like, I just wanted to have a bunch of us me and my friends to have a space where we could just produce for the sake of producing and learn for the sake of learning, please feel free to come and see our Instagram page. And we are about to drop, an incredible amount of content, and what I just wanted to also name that, like, I think what happened, especially on like OnlyFans, was so incredibly powerful with all of these porn stars and sex workers like finding an avenue. And I will say OnlyFans has done a really terrible job of continuing to give them platform, because a lot of them have then been kicked off of the platform, as OnlyFans has now essentially rebranded itself for people who do yoga and physical instruction videos, knowing full well that it was sex workers who built that entire platform.
Wow.
That's right.
So I just wanted to name that as well. Like it's, OF is not perfect by any means.
No.
I have a question I wanted to throw to Vico. Vico, what changed? Because I feel like we're all activists in our own right mind, individually. We're activists because we're showing tons of visibility through the work we do. What changes do you feel should be made for the next generation? Because I'm about paying it forward to the next generation.
And I resonate with what everyone is saying, and the answer is producing. The reason that I am where I am right now is because of community. The reason why I've been able to make a life and a career out of like acting is because of community. Not just because of the mainstream like stuff that I've booked, it's like because I've been working with community, for the community, that I am where I am. And then the only logical reason for me, it was like, I also opened a production company this year. It was like, this is what's up, like this is what needs to happen. What's the next step? It's to become a producer, and then just like keep opening the doors. So I'm not the only Latina non-binary person. There's still so many things that need to. And it's wild because it's like, I get a lot of people being like, I've never seen someone that like uses inclusive language in Spanish. And I'm like, there was that, and it's not just me, there's other folks too. And it's that, so yeah, paying it forward just straight up means like becoming a producer and producing the content. And like the folks that I've been reading their scripts from, that we just keep like, we say in that like the Pisces, we're like like the dream, like let's do it. And it's like, no, actually here's the freaking money, let's freaking do it, let's make it happen.
Like let's actually do it. Yeah,
no, for real. I'm not like, it's like, give me the concept, because there are so many incredibly talented people that I know, writers, directors, cinematographers, everyone. I mean, again, I am where I am because I've been around the community, like everyone. I know people that can do good shit, like beautiful, good fucking content. And now it's like, okay, so if I made it to this point, like here's the frickin', let's just pay forward, so that, and similarly, that way the younger folks who are coming in don't have to jump into spaces that are mainly white, cis, heteronormative, and have to like be the only ones on set having to advocate for themselves, because it is incredibly tiring to be the only person on set. Being like, great, so not only am I being hired for an actor, but I'm not getting paid to be the educator here.
That's right.
That's right.
And everyone's got questions
on behalf of all trans people or something, and it's like, you haven't asked me to consult, and that's what I'm doing right now. So let's up my paycheck.
But I'm sure we've all read garbages on sets and in theaters, and it's like, wait a minute, who wrote this again? And you don't have a consultant from the community. Ding dong, the playwright should be dead, or the writer should be dead, because it's like, wait a minute. Like, I'm gonna say this, like, Seven Deadly Sins is happening in New York City.
It is.
And I read one of the scripts, and I was like, oh, okay, where is the consultant?
I wonder which one you read. I read one as well.
You know which one, Tammy Dale? Oh, I was like, okay, I hope they get the casting right. And Victor Vasquez, you owe me one. He's a good colleague of mine. Victor Vasquez, casting director.
Yeah, she got me the job that I have right now at the Kennedy Center. So,
yes, he's phenomenal. He's for the community. I love my brother. I'm just not talking to him right now. I'm a little bit upset with him, but But I love Victor so much. But I read one of the scripts before they went into rehearsal, and I was like, okay, this is a little bit problematic, but you're gonna get away with it because you're a white playwright.
And did they get away with it? Are they still doing it as written?
They're doing it as it's written. And I really wanted to say something, but I said, oh, if you say something on your platform, yeah, and people's going to throw missiles at you.
That's the issue.
So I just said, okay, well, just I feel like sometimes all fights are not my fights. And it seems like people just get in my DMs and they're like, oh, Cece, do you know that this casting happened? Or this person is writing this narrative. You need to say something. And most of the time I will, but just because of this particular playwright, and the people behind it, I said, Tectonic Theater Company, I'm a little bit disappointed in you guys, but I'm gonna give you guys another opportunity, for your next go around. If you do something of this magnitude, please hire a consultant. And, like I always tell these people, I'm always available to consult.
Exactly.
Even if you need me to like review the script and go over it and do rewrites. Like, let me tell you something. I remember when I got cast in Street Children off Broadway at New Ohio Theater with MJ Rodriguez, Tamara Williams, Johnny Sibley, who are all on Pose. When those producers and Jenna Warsham, who is one of the more brighter directors for gender inclusion and diversity in a lot of her shows, found out, hey, wait, she comes from ballroom. So she would have known what the lingo was back then, how the picture looked. So I remember they said, okay, besides we hiring you as an actress in the show, we want you to be the consultant, to be the historian of the show, because you lived it, you breathed this time era. So I remember they had me go through every department, from dialect to the script, to the costuming, down to the hair and the makeup. They had me even look at like the sketches for like the scenic elements, down to like, did a spoon look like this in 1988? Did plates look like this in 1988? And I'm like, no, these plates look kind of like 2016 plates. The plates in 1988 had, like design, like what you would see in your grandma's china cabinet.
Yes.
And I felt so good because I felt like this is one show that I'm in that they got it right. They even got it right down to the casting. It took them 5 months to cast all of us in the show. I remember hearing about the show May 2016. When September 2016 rolls around, my agent says, hey, do you want to audition for this show? Because the show is obviously still casting and they need an older woman to play multiple roles. And I remember going into the audition and I saw MJ Rodriguez. And I said, what are you, like, you auditioning? We're like, what are you here? Are you auditioning for another project? And she said, no, I'm auditioning for this project. And that's when I knew that this was something that was going to be big, bigger than what I expected. The show made so much noise in New York City to where you had Ryan Murphy's people, Pose, they were there. They were actually stealing, I say they were stealing ideas from the show.
Of course.
Tesley Casting was there. They were casting Charm for Off-Broadway. I felt like, okay, it's good that this show is opening doors, but are these other future productions gonna get it right the way Street Children got it right? And I felt like, yeah, I felt Telsley casting got it right for Charm. I think they really did when it came to the entire cast. I felt Pose got it right when it came to the casting. Not the writing. The writing was pure filthy garbage the first season, because I felt like not every POC TGNC person does sex work. We're not out to be tricking spouses or men. So I felt like, yeah, Street Children gave you guys that push. It really did, you know. But like I said, it was such an honor when they said, hey, we want you to look down every department, and what isn't right, you tell us, and we're going to get it right. I remember looking at that script 9 times. In less than 24 hours, I was rewriting certain words of the script. And I went back into that rehearsal room and I said, well, open up the script. And I was like, yeah, nobody was walking around with a Gucci bubble coat in 1988. Not in the piers, not in Greenwich Village. They was wearing sheepskin. The boys was sheepskin. They was wearing Kangos, big fat chains. The girls had big earrings like this, and you know, their own hair. And you know, if you was using a pressing comb or a curling iron, you styled it like, yeah.
And so I wonder, did you get a writing credit?
That's the thing. Now, the cast was furious that I didn't get a writing credit.
Oh. Because then your name lives with a piece, and it's not just this 2-month thing, and then they get to say, look, these are the photos, we did so much research, but you don't get any of that clout. You don't get
I didn't get none of that. And the cast made noise and said she basically rewrote this whole story. Wow. Where's her writing credit? And there was one particular cast member that was outraged. He was actually a supporting cast member on Pose, who was in the show with us. And he said, you deserve a writing credit for this play. But I never received it. They just labeled me as historian, consultant.
And what does that actually mean in the room? You know, how can that be a part of your marketing for you, as opposed to saying, no, I was a writer. And that's something that I've been doing too. I'm like, if we're doing a devised piece or a piece where I am inputting into the space, put me down as a writer. And it doesn't even have to be something that changes my salary, because I get capital is capital, and it's a crock of shit anyway. But when this comes on to somebody's feed, wherever, via email, via, you know, you see a Facebook 10 years ago, whatever, Instagram, I want my name on it.
Right.
So that they know that I was there. Beyond, oh, you were just an actor, so we can plug you in and da-da-da-da. No, because I wrote the piece as well. Right. And that is one of the things that I carry with me as well. Like, how can I, even as an actor, continue to be on the other side of the table? Because they get to live on with the story. And a lot of the things that I do in TV and film, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm doing this as an actor. Can I also come in as a producer? Can we talk about what it would mean for me to be a producer or an associate producer? Because if I'm investing in a story, then I want the story to continue to invest in me as the story continues forward. I want to be in a situation where I can reap the benefits of that story long after it's been shot and you know, edited and submitted to festivals, and then ends up, you know, in somebody's Netflix feed or whatever. Like, keep me in the story. Because I know the writers and the director and the producers are getting royalties. Oh, yeah. Where are the royalties for the actors?
Mm-hmm. And it goes to the segue of creative control of your work. Like, I've been in rooms like where I'll write a piece and they want to take full creative control. So I'm now like with my literary agents, and when I do pick up these commissions, it's like, okay, I need full control. I need full control of what I'm creating, what I'm writing. And please don't censor me, because I've been censored a few times. You know, CC, we like your writing, but can you, you know, soften it? Could you this? Could you that? And I'm like, then I'm just not the playwright for you, and you're not the company to be presenting my work. I need full creative control of the content that I want to be seen and heard out there.
And as someone
Go on, Vico. No, go on.
Go on.
who's mainly an actor, it makes a world of a difference when there's a writer or multiple writers in the writer's room that are BIPOC, TGNC. Like, it makes a world of a difference as an actor's perspective when I get breakdowns, when I get sides, when I get a script. I can smell it when they just wrote a character for the sake of diversity.
Checking a box. Yeah.
Yeah, I just can smell it a mile. I can just like already see it on the way that the character is described on the breakdown. And I'm like, that's clearly they were just looking to fill a box. Great. And when I read a script that like I know that has people in there, or not even, I don't know, I just read it and I'm like, dang. And I look up the writers and I'm like, there you go. There were people there that were like fucking, you know, creating the story. So it does make a world of a difference to have like not just one side of the coin like filled up. Like everyone in all of the positions really makes change. So
Have you? It's so ironic that you mentioned that, Vico, because has anyone else besides you, Vico, and myself can smell the BS when you just know that they just created this role just so they can say that they have diversity?
I'm in this like cute little Discord group of a bunch of like young like trans mask NBs, and like a lot of us go out for the same roles and we're all very different, and it's hilarious that just like throw a blanket of like we want NBs, and then it's like it's the Hollywood version of like what they think an NB looks like, and it's like you see all of us and it's like 15 very different people going for the same role, and we know when that happens because it's like we want the cool androgynous non-binary person, and we're like eye roll, you know, like
Yeah.
this is what Hollywood just thinks this is what non-binary is, and it's like so like all right, here did you get that? We're all just like texting like did you get
Yeah.
this? Cool, great. Right, awesome. So yeah, it's when you start seeing like fleshed out stories and like they actually wrote a human being that just happens to be like, then you're like, ah, okay, there you go. You actually like had someone in there that wasn't just like trying to fill a box and like trying to be like the cool like androgynous non-binary person that's like you know, like has all the cool things, and it's like come on, like we're people, you know, like flesh it out. So yeah, we can, it's you can see it.
That's why you need more that's why you need more non-binary screenwriters, you need more Black screenwriters, you need more trans screenwriters, you need more all of it. And that's the only way, you know, like I know it's a complete breakdown of the system. We have to break the system down and rebuild the system. And it's frustrating to because I know that I did a lot of that work in my own space. And so I do see a difference in the pornography world now with representation of trans men that never existed before. Now I see so many more. But so my point being is that's because now what we were talking about earlier, we all have to step up, every single one of us. We can't just say, I want to see more trans people, and we have to participate in that. And we have to we have to be screenwriters, we have to be producers, we have to be directors. We have to start pushing these things into the system. I know what I heard from you earlier, I think most of you, is that you don't want to educate. And I totally get that. You shouldn't have to come to the space and say, this is this, or you shouldn't have to rewrite a script. But the reality is you kind of have to now. in order to, but you should be being paid for that. It should be compensated as something worthwhile. And you're right. You're as an actor, you don't get shit. After it's done, you're done, right? You get paid a base pay. The people who make the residuals are everyone else. So yeah, it's a complicated system that needs to be broken down and recreated as far as I'm concerned. It's the only way change is going to get made. And by standing down.
So,
I just
I
want
want-
to, you know,
Oh, yeah,
I
please,
just
please,
want
please.
us as a community whole just to walk on set and just be, everything is normal, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And not having
They've
to be
already
an
done the work.
educator. Yeah.
Exactly. Like they've already done the work before I've gotten there.
That's
So
right.
that when I get there, I don't have to be doing the work in time and making the decision. I can just do what they've hired me to do. And
Mhm.
like that, I've been in a couple of situations, thankfully, where I really felt like they had done their work as people to say we are inviting them into the space. And so we're inviting all of them, not just the parts that we can profit on.
That's right.
And so if that means, I've been in a situation or two where they're like, how would you like the dressing room situation to be? Okay, cool, let's talk about that. When I'm in character, my pronouns may be different. When I am out of character, my pronouns may be different. That's fine, because I get called in to play a lot of she people,
Mhm.
and that's fine.
That's right.
Mhm.
But let's make sure that we are talking about the character and not me, the person,
Mhm.
because I don't operate in she pronouns. So, and I've had situations where I was in a reading over the quarantine, and the writer, a white cis woman, had invited all of these Black and brown, queer and trans people to do this piece. And, we're still using language to refer to trans women that we had put to rest, and being a non-binary person who does not identify as a trans woman, I see the responsibility in if there are trans women in the space, specifically Black trans women in the space, to be on their advocacy team, because again, their existence has paved the way for my existence. And so I as a part of my thank you. And so, I could see the trans woman in the space being like, I need to call the writer's attention, something that she has written, and I would just look at her and be like, yeah, no, I got it. Like, I'll do that. That's fine. And also because I happen to know the writer in a different regard. And so it was easy for me to be like, yeah, dude, this is garbage. Like, you need to take this out. Or like, yeah, we stopped using that, a couple of years ago. And to just go through the work in that way. And, I got a DM from the trans woman. I think we were on Zoom probably. I got a DM from the trans woman. Her name is Garnet Williams, and she's amazing. Saying thank you. And I was like, you don't even have to thank me. This is why I'm here as well. This is a part of what I do, specifically for trans women in space, and trans men in the space as well. Yeah, and so, I can definitely tell the difference when someone is just writing in a trans or non-binary character, or trans and non-binary character, for the sake of giving themselves a pat on the back and to say I am on trend with what's going on right now. And I think we've all been kind of saying the same statement of like, this is not a trend, and we are not trends. We are human beings, and we're existing. And what we're asking for is, if you're calling us into the space, which people are, because again, it's trendy, then you are making space for the fullness of us, and not just the parts that are beneficial to you, so you can sell tickets, or so you can pitch this to a certain distributor and say, hey, look, we have a trans man who's a porn star. Okay, cool. Are you a trans man, Ms. Buck? Is that how you refer to yourself, as a trans man?
No, male. I just go by man, but yeah, I'm a trans dude. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
That's old Cat Daddy.
Or daddy, whatever. That's a whole other.
Wait to log off and see what Buck Angel is really all about.
It's not too difficult.
But yeah, just like in the same sense that Vico is saying, like we are everybody.
That's
We're
right.
not just like, oh yeah, and especially being, a black person and then being like, oh yeah, I show up to an audition, I'm like, oh, it's us. Okay, cool. Yeah. How are you today? Like, yeah, we're all here. We already know there's only 25 and they call us in all the time. And so we're all friends. And one of the things that I want to lift in what Vico has said is that they've mentioned like they have community in that as well. And because they have community, they have transparency to say, hey, cool, they called you in. All right, great. What are they offering you? What are they offering me? Let's compare numbers. Let's make sure that we're all getting our money's worth here for calling us in. And that way they're not getting over on anybody. And what I would have loved to have seen for you, Cece, in the instance that you were talking about in San Diego, was that trans woman who was playing your understudy to say, hey, the two of us need to have a conversation because I think they're running games.
That's right.
That would have been the revolution in that regard. And I hope that in the next instance, if there is a situation where you're being understudied by a trans woman who is not Black, that they do take that initiative.
But sometimes they don't, our counterparts,
like I was saying, like
race-wise,
diplomacy is powerful.
counterparts race-wise, sometimes they don't understand, I feel. Like, for instance, like last year, Dane has been producing with Long Wharf, and I remember when she approached me last year, before Long Wharf wanted to commission You Will Never Enter Our High Holy Land of Blackness that I wrote for them. I said, my first initial conversation was, okay, I know you guys are a Tony Award winning theater company. So you've produced many works. But I feel that I should be compensated as you're compensating a white playwright the same salary. And I remember it took Dane to go back to them and says, well, my sister ain't buzzing and she ain't nudging. So she's not going to give you no play if you're not giving her what she really truly wants. And I felt that, Dane had to go in there and kick down those doors in order for them to pay me what I know what my worth is as a playwright. And I don't call myself a playwright, I call myself a storyteller. Because I'm presenting these narratives on stage, script wise, but also as an actress, I'm a storyteller. So I hate using the word playwright. I hate using the word actress because I'm really a storyteller. And it took another woman like my skin tone, my gender, to tell them, hey, you need to pay her more because she's worth what you guys are looking for as far as her writing is concerned. I don't think a white counterpart would have said that.
And that's sad. That actually makes me sad. I'll tell you, it's fucked up. Like I said earlier, white people need to start fucking stepping up. They're so scared to lose their space. It's like, bitch, there's enough space for everyone. Trust me, you ain't gonna lose shit. It's frustrating, really. I just, I'm sorry. I'm gonna apologize for all the dipshit white people. Sorry. That woman should have stepped up. And and the thing is that I think people don't understand their space. They don't understand the power of their space. I think a lot of people just think she thought she was just an actress too, but she didn't understand the difference between, the power she has, even just as a white person. She just has that power to, anyway, it's frustrating, to be honest with you.
Well, we got a question from Mari Booth Ong. They sent us 2 questions. Is no representation better than bad representation, stereotypical token, etc.? So what do you guys feel about that first question?
Loaded question. That's what I think.
It's very that. It's like, oh God.
Well, yeah.
Bad representation in what regard? Like a terrible script, like terrible writing, or like I'm not interested in seeing any more Black trans women be sexually assaulted. Like that for me is bad representation. Like we don't need to produce that narrative anymore.
Or a hooker, right? Or a black hooker.
Or like
Yeah.
like playing doing sex work, and I'm like, okay, yeah, they do other things.
Or
but yeah, oh gosh, oh, I'm gonna pass it because it's so loaded. Oh God.
It is.
Then the-
I'm gonna say, but it's a great question, but I'm gonna say that on some level, some representation, even if it's bad, again, going back to the beginning, what I said, squeezing our foot through the door. Sometimes you got to take a hit to squeeze your foot through the door, but once that door is a little bit ajar, we have a bigger opportunity to push. But if the door is totally shut, so sometimes some of us have to take that hit of being sort of not the great representation. Like, I'm going to tell you, I have that on Howard Stern. I went on Howard Stern. That's all I'm going to say. It was insane. It was a circus show. It was fucked up, but I did it. And I knew that if I did it, it was going to get me to this next space, but I was the circus freak. And so, I did do that. So I did a horrible representation of trans men, but I did it in order to sort of get into another space. So, that's just my 2 cents.
I will say, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
I think Nico was about to say something, and if Vika was about to say
Oh,
something.
Vika?
I was going to say that like a disclosure discusses this as well. And I similarly, it's tricky because like from an actor's standpoint, it's like when you represent something in a bad way, there's a half and half, right? Because I've gotten sides that I read that I'm like, oh, this is incredibly transphobic and this is like super just cringy, and I am just gonna say no to this, and also like send a note to my agent being like, they should hire someone to like look over this, because like this is not gonna be good for them in the future. And there are other things that I see that I'm like, this is like kind of questionable. I could get into this project and like shift things while I'm there. It's not gonna be perfect, but it's gonna be like it's gonna open the door for someone else to get in there. But it is very tricky because it could really fuck things up. But we are in a point right now where we don't have to really get, when you watch Disclosure, we've moved to a point where we really can be like, no, that's bad. And like call everyone and be like, do not audition for this. Do not go out for this. Like, this is not a good role. Like, delete it, rewrite it, like do better. And then we'll like go for it. Because we've been able to wedge enough to be like, oh, okay, we have enough of us already here to be like, no bad representation, it's just bad. Done. We're done with it. We've done it already. We did it. It's over. But we've had unfortunately bad representation in the past, and I've seen shows and other things, and it's like, oh no, but it did help other people, but it's like but it's now part of the story. But now where we are, I definitely feel like I feel comfortable in a place where I can just be like, nope, I'm not auditioning for that. Like, rewrite it, get someone. I'm not doing this. And then texting my friends being like, don't go out for that. Like, that's no bueno. Goodbye.
Exactly. Thank you. That's essentially like what I really want to say was, I don't believe in the binary of like it has to be bad representation or no representation. It can be good representation. It just can. And if it's not quite good representation at the time that we meet it, then we can choose whether or not we will take it to that space. And like that's usually when I get on and I'm like, okay, cool. Can I email the writer, or can I talk with the director, or who's doing the casting here? And I'll just email and be like, yeah, what are you all doing? Like, how malleable is this? What can we do? What can we do with this script? Because it's clear that it is still in a stage of development. If I'm being kind with my words, as just saying like this is not good. But yeah, just to have a conversation and know that like at this point in our history, we are not accepting bad representation. What we can do is say, either I or someone who is willing to do that labor will see this through so that it is a better representation. And yeah, everything that Viko said is really right on the money, being in community about it. And I've actually been in an instance where it wasn't based in gender. There was a company that was asking artists to do independent work, and this is a very small community theater that was asking Black artists to do work for Black History Month, and they wanted the work to be unpaid. And I'm like, sure, I get that part. I don't personally believe in that, but I get it, especially if it's a community theater and that's their model. What I couldn't get was the fact that they wanted the audience to donate money that they would use for ticket sales to an old folks home that primarily services white elderly people. That to me was like, what?
What?
Do you understand what Black History Month is? But so someone sent me that email, and I was like, I'm just going to email the person whose name is here. I see their whole email address. I'm just going to email them. And I emailed them, and then they took it upon themselves to email them. They sent it out to one of our community pages here in DC saying, hey, if you have the time and space, please email them to let them know that we are not doing this anymore. And after the community said, hey, we're not going to take it, they took the listing down and was like, we understand what we did was fucked up in so many words. And we're going to stop and reevaluate and then maybe try this again, but maybe not. And thank you for your feedback, essentially. And so for us, it was a triumph to see that the community just needed to say something, because they might not have even seen how far in error they were. And then if that doesn't work, and sometimes it doesn't, and if that doesn't work, then we can be strategic about how we are then going to, whether it's boycott or get to the press or whatever it is, whatever the follow-up is, so that we can continue the conversation if they choose to produce the work in the representation that is disrespectful to the queer and trans community or the Black trans community, etc.
Well, we have 15 minutes before we wrap, and we have 2 more questions. So this question is from Marai. Second question is it against the law to ask people's sexuality in job interviews? How would you suggest producers seek the appropriate talent and artists to tell Pacific live experience of a character?
So like they've mentioned in the question, it is in fact against the law. I've seen a lot of casting breakdowns that are, talking about the character, talking about the pronouns that the character uses, talking about their identity as it relates to the story, whether it's gender or sexuality, etc. And then making a note to say we are asking for actors who heavily identify with that experience.
Mm-hmm.
In so many words, to say, yes, we are looking for, who ticks all of those boxes specifically, without going as far as to say, okay, yes, please tell us your gender identity on the interview form. There are ways to find the language, specifically in casting, that I've seen that have been very successful. And I'd be down to share some of those with you, Mariah, if you're interested in getting that information, if you are like producing or casting and want that information on your stuff. But yeah, and there are resources online specifically for casting directors to say, hey, this is now the language that we are using. So I would honestly suggest a good Google search is a great place to start to get that language for yourself as well, if you want to see it.
Yeah. Buck, you have a question from a viewer. And the question is, how do you see the current state and the future of new performers who want to work in the adult and mainstream? How different, in your opinion, is not only in the trans space, but the adult space in general, the public's perception and respect for adult film from when you started to now?
Oh, great question. First off, porn is porn and the world hates it. So I'm going to tell you that straight off. It doesn't matter if you get into porn, people will hate you from every aspect and it will stay with you for the rest of your life. And so you better think about that before you get in it. I will never not be a porn star. Even though I haven't done a movie in over 5 years, I'm still a porn star. And that being said, it stops me from getting booked on many things. So because mainstream doesn't necessarily want the tranny porn star, so I'm being super honest with you here. And I had to learn how to create my own space in the world that's still attached pornography to it, because I'm never going to get there. Now, that being said, it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. It changed my life. I created businesses out of it. I'm very successful. I have an amazing life. I love sex, all of that. But I understood that it is going to still be a hit. So if you understand all those things, it's an amazing space to go in. It has become a bigger space for many, many trans men. I wouldn't say something, I would say that I wish there were more, because they're still not anywhere near what I thought there would be, but it's a difficult space to get into. We all know that. Pornography is very difficult. You have to be very open with yourself and your body. So I really think that if you're looking to get into that profession, which you might be, I think you should send me an email so I can really tell you what it's really about, even more than what I told you here. And secondly, it's a great profession if you're willing to understand the length of it and what it will do for you in the long run.
Awesome. So Vico and Buck, you both have a question a viewer sent. Within the industry, there has been discussions about how to categorize non-binary, gender non-conforming people when it comes to award season. Vico and Timideo, in a non-binary sphere like Best Actor and Best Actress, what are your feelings on how this should be addressed for people such as yourselves?
So the Helen Hayes Awards, which are a DC-based award ceremony, very similar to the Tonys. I just had this big overhaul, and one of the ways that we did that was to say, okay, instead of Best Actor or Best Actress, we are now stating Best Performer. And that takes care of that issue completely. I will say we are still learning about bias in terms of how things are adjudicated and how audiences are primed to see male performers as opposed to female performers, and how they judge them on stage. As you can guess, it is harsher on female bodies. And there are also supposedly more female bodies from which to adjudicate on stage. And so the pool for Best Actor, you know, in comparison would be like 50 men for Best Actor as opposed to 200 women for Best Actor. So there are more people in that regard. So we are still learning, because I'm a part of the committee that is helping to unhinge that bias. We are still learning about how we can learn to meet that and train ourselves to see beyond that. But first and foremost, we wanted to change the name itself. And so I have my Helen Hayes Award literally around the corner for me. And it says Best Supporting Performer. As opposed to
Love that.
And we have a last question collectively from Miriam Billington. What can theaters do better to make the physical space more comfortable, safe, and non-binary? Bathrooms, dressing rooms, etc.
I am non-binary. I don't know if Ego identifies as non-binary.
Yeah, non-binary, gender fluid. It's interesting because I don't really do a lot of haven't done a whole lot of theater, and the last two things that I've done with theater, we were all just sharing the same dressing room. It was a very small theater space, and it was just everyone was there, and you know, it was all different chairs and whatnot, and it wasn't like a big, you know. And also coming into those like spaces, like I felt safe immediately just because like it was like say your name, say your pronouns, and your favorite color or whatever, and it never felt like it was like I was the only one. So, and it was just a very comfortable shared space. And then on TV, you normally have your own trailer, so it doesn't really. So I feel like the way to make it safe is just to not make it a big. You feel like it's like the second you're like really, it's the second you're like there's the one non-binary person here, and then you just all freak out and panic. I think that's what makes it like really like, oh no, now I'm an inconvenience to you, you know. That's I feel like what makes it like now I need to talk about genitals and no, and it's you know, So I feel like in those two instances where I was in theater space and everyone was just like very chill and it was just like we just all shared the same space and it wasn't no one bad in the night. It was like, oh great, like cool. And I didn't have to think about it. But I know that's not the case for a lot of places. So yeah. So it's that uh yeah.
You know
Yeah,
what?
I will say,
No, you go. You go.
sorry. I will say that like in one of the questions, again, when I'm like, hey, cool, you want me to be a part of this? Like, what does that mean? I had in the show that I'd done with Roundhouse Theater, where I received this award. The director, probably one of the first days of rehearsal, we just so happened to be all up and we were probably dancing or something, and she just pulled me for a moment, was like, hey, and you know, we were just meeting really for the first time. She was like, hey, I noticed your pronouns. Like, would you like your own dressing room? And I had to, and this was at the time, like everyone in the cast is playing a she character, a woman, female character. And I remember being like, oh, that seems like a lot. Like, it's fine. I'll just, you know, as Vika was saying, like not to be an inconvenience to the production. And then I went home and I started like really shaming myself for not taking the opportunity to say, yeah, that actually would be really awesome. And thank you for acknowledging that that may be something that I need. And I panicked and tried to figure out how I was going to double back with the director and, you know, still meeting her and not knowing, you know, what her energy was like in that kind of instance. But I mustered up the courage for myself to email her and say, hey, I hope the offer is still on the table. Can I actually have my own dressing room? That would mean a lot to me. And she's like, yeah, okay, cool. And then like just, you know, CC'd the stage manager, and then, you know, the stage manager assigns the dressing room. So they were like, she was just able to take care of it like it was nothing. And I think it's really powerful what Vika was saying about like, yes, we are in the room. Yes, acknowledge all of us. And as we enter the space, and it's not a big deal. And it doesn't need to be something that is hushed tones, or we don't need to walk on eggshells about the situation. If we need to just have a conversation, we'll have a conversation. But coming into a space with non-binary actors specifically, with a lot of openness and energy to listen means a whole lot. To know that you being whoever the governing body in that space is, whether it's director, producer, the stage manager, even co-actors, to say, hey, I have a question. Whether or not you answer that question is your own decision, but like, this is a question that I'm curious about. I am down for that. I think it's really awesome when people do that for me, to just say like, are you cool with that? And if you're not cool with that, like, what are you cool with? And just practicing like continual consent and negotiation and in space, and just consent in all regards. Not just about like, yeah, this is a sexual based consent, but consent in every instance of how we negotiate space and closeness and intimacy and anything together. Yeah, I think it's incredibly powerful when that happens in a space. And it's something that is casual and something that is encouraged by those who have the power in the space, specifically the director and the stage manager and the producer and the artistic director, to say, this is the culture of our space here. These are the rituals that are in place before. So even if it is a room where everyone is cis and uses the pronouns that they were assigned at birth, that everyone still names their pronouns in the space, so that the ritual is in place. So that if I come into the space and I'm using they, them pronouns, everyone is already ready to share their pronouns, regardless. Like even that, it's leaps and bounds from where we have been. And it changes so much about how we are ready to engage in conversation with each other.
Awesome. So unfortunately, panel, we got to close this amazing convo. I'm so grateful to have shared this hour and some change with you guys on this amazing conversation. I want to keep in contact with all three of you guys. I feel like this is my community. It's my family. I want to keep in contact. And my last question is, what is everybody working on? Rico, let's start with you.
I'm currently working on a pirate comedy on HBO.
Awesome.
I'm super stoked. It's called Our Flag Means Death. I'm sure it'll probably come out like in a couple of years. And then I'm in a zombie show called Soldados o Zombies that's coming up in a couple of weeks. So
Is it a live show?
say what?
Is it an in-person performance, the zombie show?
It's a TV show. So Soldados o Zombies, it's Soldiers or Zombies in English. It's a Latin American. I would say it's like a mixture between like Walking Dead and Narcos. And it's coming on Amazon Prime Video August 6th, and it's a TV series. And then the pirate one will come out in a couple of years. So, but first zombies. First we kill zombies, and then we swashbuckle.
Awesome! I can't wait to watch. Trampa, Buck.
Grandpa, that's me. Oh my God, what am I not working on? So I'm making more sex toys. I created sex toys for trans men. Then I'm also in the cannabis business. So I create a whole brand of cannabis, and we'll talk about that too. Important that we do talk about that, because I do work with organizations that really talk about Black people and in the whole space. It's important to me. So that being
getting people out of the prison system.
Oh my God, totally. We're working on that. That's just ridiculous. That's a whole other conversation we can have. So right on. That's pretty much what I'm doing, and just doing, pretty much keeping my voice out there pretty much as an elder in the community. And that's it. I love you guys. You're awesome. Thank you for having me.
Temi Dale, what are you working on?
Yes. Oh, I just want to say my name is Temi Dale.
Temi Dale. Okay, Dale. Okay, I'm
like
sorry.
Dale. Yeah. So the same as like I'm like 55,000 things at the same time. But what I really want to put voice to, because it's the work that is so closest to me, is the pilot project, which we are dropping our I'm sorry, it still makes me laugh that we're doing it. But we're doing a TikTok web series called The Cookout. That if all goes well, it drops on Labor Day this year.
My birthday.
Oh, word! We love a Virgo in the space. But yes. So please follow the Pilot Pro _, that's THE Pilot, PILOT Pro, PRO _,
Wait,
on Instagram.
Pilot _?
The Pilot Pro _. We are on Instagram and of course on TikTok. And we're going to be dropping that, and I'm so very excited for that. Very excited. And then after that, I'll be directing a new piece called Skylark in Montclair, New Jersey, which I'm very excited about. But just really beautiful work, some good people. And our friend and big sister and champion of the space, Cece, what are you doing?
So I'm working on a new piece. I just finished a new play, writing a new play. I don't know who to give it to. I mean, I've gotten offers from other companies, theatrical institutions that like, okay, let me take a look at it. But I'm protective of my work. And I feel like if you're not for me, you're simply not for me. If you're for me, then I'll hand it over to you. So I'm not one of those storytellers that's like, here goes the script, so I got to know what you have done for community first and foremost. So, I've finished writing that, and I'm about to do my second season of with the TMI project, Black Trans Stories Matter, and yeah, just keep on opening doors and swinging. I'm swinging like Batgirl. Um, and, and lighting these people up. And I want to Michael, the
May our fires
CEO president of.
never run out of oil.
Hi,
Okay.
guys.
Hi,
Um,
Michael.
Real quick, I wanted to ask each of you to tell us where we can find you, your Instagram handle or or if someone wants to follow you, where can they find you? Vico, how about we start with you?
You can find me on Instagram. I'm Puerto Rican Ninja. The same N for Puerto Rican is the same N for ninja, so just the one N. And then I'm on TikTok, Vico_Ortiz. I'm on Twitter, but I don't really post anything there, so honestly, don't even bother. But TikTok and Instagram, I'm pretty active. So those two, yeah.
And Buck?
Oh, I'm Buck Angel Instagram, Buck Angel Twitter, Buck Angel Official Facebook, which I hate, so don't even contact me there. And I'm Mr. Buck Angel on TikTok, but whoa, that's for the kids. I don't even know if I think I'm too old for that shit.
You're never too old. Timadayo.
Yeah, I'm actually also posting it in the chat so people have a visual. So I have Temidayo MA on Instagram, and the Pilot Pro _ on Instagram as well. And from there you can find all my other pages. But yes, please do hit me up. I love a DM in my Instagram. So long as you're respectful, please slide right into the DM. And yeah, also feel free to, from the Temidayo main page, to follow my yoga journey as well. I am a yoga practitioner and instructor, and I'm interested specifically in trans body homecoming, to help with all of the constant dysphoria that I feel in my body. I'm like, let's just be home with the body for a little bit of time and just celebrate it for where it's at. So yeah. And at this point, all of my yoga is free. So
Oh wow.
Nice. And Cece?
make donations if you choose.
Soy la Garifuna Vixen, at IG, Instagram, Miss Messy CC on Facebook. Messy CC. Oh, honey, because I got to keep on lighting it up and letting half of these institutions and producers. So it's Miss Messy CC.
Can you put you said the first one, La Garifuna?
Garifuna Vixen. I'm from
Can you put that
Latina.
on the chat?
Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you put in the chat, and then when we put this on our YouTube channel, we'll include them in the description so people can get them from that as well. I just want to, well, first I need to say thank you to Jonathan Saya very much for pulling this panel together. What a beautiful job. It was such a great panel. I swear, I was just telling my friends who are here watching with me that every month I'm like, well, this one was a great one. It was another great panel. And I realize that it's not your job to educate, but I appreciate you sharing your stories, your thoughts, your opinions, because it did educate. And that's important, because the only way to get change is for all of us to learn and be a part of the change. And I think that every time we hear these community discussions, we learn something and we're like, oh, I say that, I shouldn't say that, or, oh, I never thought of it that way, or you have a different experience than me, so I learned from your experience. So I recognize it's not your job to educate, but just so grateful that you were here tonight to share. So thank you very much, everybody. And I really, really thank you guys for being here tonight. It was such a beautiful evening.
Thank you. Thank you guys.
Thank
Love you. I'll connect with all of
Yes.
And
Let's
you can
all
always check,
connect.
you can get more information on all of them at morgan-wixon.org, and check this out on our YouTube channel to watch again and share with all your friends, so we all keep learning and growing and making the change that we need to make in this world. So thanks everybody. Have a great night.
Bye.
Nice.
Yes.
Bye.